So greetings to you all. So let me welcome you all for this class. So this video is the second part of the lesson when people rebel 1857 and after. So far we have learnt very elaborately about how the policies of British affect the Indian people, and this video is about the second point as I told you already. So this entire lesson which focuses on 3 points. One is how the policy of British affected the people, and the second point is how did Sepoy mutiny turns into fight against the British rule. So generally we have read many tales of the revolt, the conflict between the rulers and the ruled. For example, even the French Revolution, it was one of the notable revolt in the history. So like this, even here also the Indian historians, so they consider our Great Revolt 1857 as a massive attempt to overthrow the British Company rule from India, and it is termed by them to be the first war of India independence against the British, as I told you already in the introduction itself. And so this Great Revolt 1857, which was called by many historians as the first war of India independence. So the next point is about the quick recap of what we have learned in the first part of this lesson. So you know very well the impact of the impact of the policies of British in India. That is we have learned in the first part, and you know very well. So that was not only affected the ruling people, even the peasants, even the zamindars. It affected the religious and social wise, and even sepoys. Everybody were severely affected by the policies. As a result also, as I told you already, a Sepoy mutiny was broken out in the Bengal regiment. Out of that, we came to know about Mangal Pandey, everything. So that is going to be continued here. So already we have learnt about the immediate cause for the Great Revolt 1857. As I told you already, the introduction of the greased cartridges, the introduction of Enfield rifles were the immediate cause of the Great Revolt 1857. And you know about the rumor also. Yes, the cartridges should be bitten off before loading, but these cartridges were greased by the animal fat. Okay, so it has been explained you already in the first point. And what happened? So most of the people, they never they never come forward to use this, especially the Indian sepoys. So British attacked them. So when seeing all the brutal activities of the officer Mangal Pandey, he was very angry and he started to attack his officer. Okay, and he started to shoot his officer, and finally he was died. So as a result of that, he was executed for Mangal Pandey. He was executed for attacking his officer on 29th March 1857. Then he was put into jail. And later on, 8th April 1857, he was hanged by the British officers. So after seeing and after hearing this incident, the entire people in the Bengal regiment, so they became very violent and they started to express their anger. So after the death of Mangal Pandey on 9th May 1857, some sepoys refused to participate in the army drill and protest against the cartridges. So as like what happened before, again the people after the death of Mangal Pandey, the people they started to against the military drill and against the cartridges also. So as a result, what happened? The British officers, they dismissed the sepoys and they put them into jail. So but afterwards what happened? The imprisoned sepoys were released by the other sepoys, and then they captured the ammunition. You know very well the ammunition, which means the place we used to keep all the military equipments. Okay, they captured the ammunitions and set their buildings and the properties on fire. Finally they fired everything. Okay, so they were determined to bring an end to the British rule and make Bahadur Shah suffer the leader. You know very well. So the Mughal emperor, as I told you already, Mughal emperor. So after attacking the British and after firing their properties and building, so the sepoys, they wanted to have Bahadur Shah suffer as their leader. So after firing the properties of British sepoys, they started to march from Meerut to Delhi on next day. So next day means on 10th May 1857. So now the regiment means the sepoys only. So now the regiments in Delhi, they came to know about the arrival of the regiment from Meerut, and they also started to rebel. And finally, the two regiment also marched towards Red Fort to meet Bahadur Shah II. But what happened? So emperor, he was refused in the first because he was not ready. He was against the idea of challenging the British. But however, finally he was accepted because these people, they declared him as the king. So afterwards, Bahadur Shah II, he started to write letters to many chiefs and rulers all over the country. So in order to unite them to fight against the British. And soon, many chieftains, the chieftains and even the rulers became the part of the revolt, and the British were. Finally, what happened? The British, those who were in the Delhi, they were evicted from Delhi. And so this happened in the beginning. And afterwards, after a week, so the entire India, in many places, they started their own mutiny against the British. For example, almost all the important places, especially some important places like Kanpur, Delhi, Lucknow, and even central India. So these places, they started the revolt against the British. So not only the major places like Kanpur, Lucknow and Delhi and central India, even the peoples from village and towns, they started to support their chiefs, their zamindars and their leaders in order to fight against the British rule. And the second point is about, so in near Kanpur, Nana Sahib, you know very well, Nana Sahib, he was the adopted son of Bishwa Bajirao II, and he started to draw out all the British people from the city, and he declared himself as the governor under the Mughal emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar. So this happened near Kanpur. So the next incident from Lucknow. So here we have to remember one more thing. So Lucknow, I'm going to tell you the three people's name. One is Birjit Quadar. So remember the name Birjit Quadar, and his mother Begum Hazarat Magal. So do you know who is Birjit Quadar? So he is the son of Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. So remember the name. So Birjit Quadar was the son of Nawab Wajid Ali Shah. So here Nawab Wajid Ali Shah, you know very well, and he was the Nawab of Awadh at the time of its annexation to the British Empire. Just remember, in the year 1801, Awadh was annexed to the British Empire by the policy of subsidiary alliance. Yeah, do you remember that? So at the time he was the Nawab, and now Birjit Quadar was the son of Wajid Ali Shah only. So automatically, so Birjit was declared as the new Nawab of Lucknow. So during the revolt, and his mother Begum Hazarat Mahal and Birjit both, so they have played a very important role in the uprising of the revolt in Lucknow. And the next point is about the central India in Jhansi. Okay, so meanwhile in Jhansi, Rani Lakshmibai, Tandia Top, and even Nana Sahib, so they joined together with their sepoys to fight against the British rule. So thus almost all the people, the notable people, they started to involve in their fight against the British. So as a result of the Great Revolt 1857, so we have got some important leaders also. For example, Ahmadullah Shah from Faizabad. Okay, the second one is Bucket Khan from Bareilly, and even Gunwar Singh. Gunwar Singh, actually he was a zamindar of Bihar, and these people, they started to be the great leaders, and they successfully mobilized the people against the British. And as a result of the Great Revolt 1857, the British, they witnessed the huge participation of the soldiers and the leaders and the common people from across the country. And that revolt scared the British and shook the very foundation of their rule in India. So far we have learned about how the Sipai Mutiny turned a fight against the British, and now let's move to how did the company respond to the Great Revolt of 1857. So let me begin the first point. After seeing the massive participation, the active involvement of the people, the British got a huge shock. So that was first to happen, and they couldn't manage the situation, they couldn't handle the people, they couldn't suppress the revolt actually. So in order to suppress the revolt, they got men and materials from England. So they got the soldiers as well as weapons from weapons from England to stop the revolt completely. And not only that, in order to convict the rebels means, so convict, which means to declare the rebels as the criminals. Okay, so this was their first plan. The second thing, in the year 1857 in September month, okay, the company again recaptured Delhi. So you know very well, so Bahadur Shah, he was there only. Soon afterwards, Emperor Bahadur Shah was captured and sentenced to life imprisonment. So he was not put into death, but he was sentenced to life imprisonment. His whole life he wanted to be in the imprisoned only, in the jail only. But what happened? But his son refers to Bahadur Shah's son, were killed. His sons were killed by the British, and so he was sent to the prison in the Burmese capital of Rangoon in October 1858. So Bahadur Shah, he was sent to the Burmese jail, okay, in Rangoon in the year 1858 in the month of October. And afterwards, so later he died there in the Rangoon jail itself. Okay, so he died there in November 1862. So remember the year, November 1862. And whatever, so this arrest was, okay, Bahadur Shah Safar's arrest was not affected much the revolt. The people, they continue to revolt. Okay, and next thing, almost British took 2 years to make the revolt under their control. The first they captured, you know very well, first they captured the Delhi in September 1857, and now next they are going to capture Lucknow. Okay, in March 1858. So the company captured, the East India Company, they captured the Lucknow, and in June the same year 1858, Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi was killed in the battle, and you know very well, Tandia Tope, he was escaped at the time, and he was so he ran away to forest area in central India, but anyhow he sustained the revolt with the help of some peasants and the tribal leaders. But anyhow he was eventually killed by the British in April 1859. But finally what happened, you know, the hundreds of rebels, okay, so many number of people, so the hundreds of rebels, even the Nawabs, Sepoys and kings, even some civilians, they were executed, okay, they were tried and they were executed by the British. So now we are going to learn about the result, what had happened after the revolt. So you know very well, the Great Revolt was started in the year 1857, but after the 2 years, look at that, end of the year 1859 only, the British, they could capture or they could regain the control over India again. So then again one more plan has been made by the British. Look at that. So in order to win back the people's faith, already some landlords, they were loyal to the British. Yes. So the loyal landlords were given their traditional rights over their land. So once again their rights on their traditional lands was given to them. And the next thing, so the British East India Company, it realized that the same set of rules couldn't be used again. So that they have decided to bring the new set of rules, a new set of act. For example, in the year 1858, the British Parliament passed some act. According to the act, so it transferred the ruling power of India from the East India Company to directly to the British Crown. The next thing, all the matters which is related to the governance of India were handed over to the Secretary of the State for India. So look at that. So the member was selected. The member name is Secretary of State. The Secretary of the State for India was one of the member of British cabinet. Okay, and he had one council also. The name of the council is what is that? The Indian Council. So that council would help him or would advise him. So when they takes the decisions for important matter. And the second thing is, the title of the Governor General was changed, and so he is known as the Viceroy of India. So Viceroy, which means the representative of the crown. So for all the changes and everything had changed, had made, so India went to the direct control of British government. So as a result of the Great Revolt 1857, so British declared the policy of doctrine of lapse and the subsidiary alliance were invalid. And apart from that, so British, they started to recognize the hereditary rights of an adopted son. And third point about the native rulers, they promised their land would not be annexed with the British again. But the thing is, they have to accept the British Queen as their sovereign paramount, which means the supreme authority. So if they have accepted the British Queen as a sovereign paramount, so their territories would comes under her authority. So that is the indirect meaning. So after the Great Revolt, so the British, they started to respect the diverse traditions and the religious practices of India. And you know very well, India is a country, it's known for its diversity in religion, in language, and even their tradition, cultures, everything. So they started to respect. And the next thing is, so they started and they framed the policies to protect the land rights of zamindars. You know very well the Sunset Law. Okay, the new the Land Revenue Act, everything that cheated the zamindars, right? So now they framed the policies to protect the land rights of zamindars. And the next things about, they decided to increase the proportions of the European soldiers in the Indian army. The reason is, so the British decided to increase the proportions of European soldiers in the Indian army. And apart from that, so they decided to give a recruitment to the soldiers from Sikhs, Gurkhas and the Pathans. So instead of selecting from the South Indian, Central Indian and the Awadh and the Bihar, you know very well, already the revolt had been started by the people, the Sipais from the regiment from Central India, Awadh and Bihar, you know very well. Yes, so in order to avoid the same situation again, so these peoples were denied. This is also one of the result of Great Revolt 1857. And finally, you know very well, so the Great Revolt 1857, it brought a great change. Okay, it brought a drastic change in the outlook of the British towards Indians. So the British realized that they could no longer continue profiting the country without giving any turns to the people. So you know very well, so for more than 200 years they have slandered, okay, they have looted the country without doing any favor to the native people. So they realized that, so here thereafter the same thing couldn't be continued. And one more thing I want to tell you, so this revolt is considered as the seed of the fruit, okay, especially what fruit, you know, the freedom, okay, the seed of the independence, what we are enjoying everything. So what we are enjoying in our day-to-day life.